Cycling is a sport that pushes athletes to their physical and mental limits, often resulting in moments of triumph and glory. However, amidst the victories, there are also heart-wrenching moments that have left both riders and spectators devastated. Number 10. Michele Scarponi died 2017 Tour of the Alps. After finishing the Tour of the Alps the previous day, Scarponi was on a training ride on April 22, 2017, in preparation for the Giro d'Italia, where he was scheduled to captain the Astana team after Fabio withdrew due to injury. Around 8 o'clock local time, Scarponi was riding along SP 362 Via dell'Industria, a provincial road that runs through his hometown of Filotrano, when a 57-year-old local craftsman driving an Iveco daily van struck him at a traffic light via Schiavoni. Giacchioni did not see Scarponi, according to testimonies provided to the Carabinieri, Italian police. Giacomo Scarponi, who is the father of Michele, said, "We know each other well. I've lost a son, but I'm thinking of him too." After Giacchioni passed away from cancer in mid-February 2018, the criminal inquiry came to an end. Number 9. Marco Pantani's expulsion from the 1999 Giro d'Italia. Known as the Pirate, a world-famous cyclist, Pantani in 1999 was dismissed from Giro d'Italia, even though he'd won both the Giro and Tour de France in the previous year. He was disqualified because he'd failed his drugs test. This was a very heartbreaking moment in Pantani's life because it spelt the end of his career. At the Giro d'Italia, a blood sample was collected from Pantani and tested, but sadly the blood work revealed he had a hematocrit level of 52% against a maximum level of 50% that can be allowed in the competition. Unfortunately, this signaled the beginning of the end for him. 8. Fabio Casartelli's death in the 1995 Tour de France.
1967 sacrificed his life for the love of his sport. On Mount Ventoux, the passion he had for the ability he had been given was tragically given back. Moments are recorded and written as stats on paper.
The Italian cyclist Fabio Casartelli, during the Tour de France in 1995, was killed in a crash. He was just 24 years old at the time, and it was such a heartbreaking tragedy. The young rider was probably going to be among the best in the future, considering the fact that Fabio already won the Tour de l'Avenir and the Giro della Regione. This incident happened on the 18th of July 1995 during the 5th stage of the Tour de France. Casartelli and a few other riders crashed on the Col de Porte d'Aspet mountain. Fabio Casartelli died on his way to the hospital that very day because it was said that he was not putting on his bicycle helmet during the crash. 7. Lance Armstrong's doping scandal. American cyclist Lance Armstrong was stripped of all his titles since 1999 following a disastrous doping scandal that engulfed him. He'd won about 7 Tour de France, and all of it was retrieved from him when it was revealed that he'd been using drugs to enhance his performance in all his Tour de France wins. This scandal is said to be one of the biggest scandals in the history of cycling. It was a heartbreaking moment for many of his fans because of the iconic figure he represents in cycling over these years. It was in an interview with Oprah Winfrey that Armstrong finally agreed that he'd been doping during his years as a cyclist in all his Tour de France wins from 1999 to 2005. Sad. 6. Wouter Weylandt's death at the 2011 Giro d'Italia. The death of Belgian sprinter Wouter Weylandt from injuries sustained in a serious crash on the descent from the Passo del Bocco, the major ascent in the 3rd stage of the race from Reggio Emilia to Rapallo, shocked the Giro d'Italia. One account of the events claims that Weylandt hit a wall 35 kilometers from the finish as he fell hard on the winding steep descent. He appeared to have fallen badly, bleeding profusely from his face. 5. Michael Goolaerts' death at the 2018 Paris-Roubaix. On the second round of cobblestones in the one-day classic in northern France, the Verandas Willems Crelan team rider Michael Goolaerts crashed and subsequently died. After being flown to a hospital in Lille due to a heart arrest, he passed away at about 21:40 BST. A sad statement from his team read, "It's with unimaginable sadness that we have to communicate the passing of our rider and friend, Michael Goolaerts." The team said Goolaerts died in the presence of his family members and loved ones, who we keep in our thoughts. The statement added, For now, there will be no further communication as we want to give his close ones time to deal with this terrible loss. 4. Davide Rebellin death in a 2022 accident at training. Popular 51-year-old Italian pro cyclist Davide Rebellin unfortunately got struck by a truck while exercising on his bike, according to local media. In the incident at Montebello Vicentino in northern Italy, Rebellin instantly gave up the ghost. According to the source, the driver who struck Davide left the scene and is still unidentified. The National Police of Italy are still diligently seeking the offender. 3. Geraint Thomas's missed opportunity at the 2018 Tour de France. Geraint Thomas took first place in stage 12 of the 2018 Tour de France after a contentious ride that included the legendary climb of Alpe d'Huez and an accident involving yellow jersey challenger Vincenzo Nibali and a supporter. Thomas crossed the finish line ahead of the other favourites for the overall classification, extending his advantage there. The top three were completed by Tom Dumoulin and Romain Bardet, while Nibali dropped a few seconds. After finishing the stage, he later announced his retirement from the competition. 2. Chris Froome's crash at the Critérium du Dauphiné.
The worst accident of my career and what was potentially a career-ending accident. A lot of people told me at the time that I'd never be on a bike again.
The four-time Tour de France champion Chris Froome in June 2019 suffered a very hard crash. It was not even the main event, it was at the warm-up race of the Tour at the Critérium du Dauphiné. The crash resulted in him sustaining lots of injuries in his hip, his femur and his right elbow. Froome described this scene as something out of a television drama because it was really unbelievable for him. Because of the crash, his hopes of winning his first title went down the drain. 1. Gino Mäder.
6 of this year's race, there was a procession. Mäder's remaining teammates and colleagues on their bikes.
Here is one of the recent heartbreaking moments, but in this moment I will ask that you get a napkin to clean your tears because this is emotional on an epic level. Yeah, he died, the crash took his life, and as the ride continued there was a signpost that read, "We ride for you, Gino." Gino was just 26, a young Swiss cyclist, and he died after a terrible crash at stage 5 of the Tour de Suisse. After being thrown into a ravine in the Swiss Alps, Mäder and another racer, Magnus Sheffield of the United States, were both brought to the hospital. These were Gino Mäder's last words before the crash.
Yeah, I'm happy to race. Back home, a lot of the parkour is going to be in my home roads, so yeah, I can't wait to start.
These are all tragic cases, from death to losing a fledgling career, and as we've seen, many of these cyclists lost their place in the world as a result. Anyway, thanks for watching as always, but before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more interesting cycling content like this one. See you next time.